Okay, next we are doing question 24. The ratio of the speeds v1 divided by v2, or v1 over v2, is A, the square root of r2 divided by r1, B, the square root of r1 divided by r2, C, the square root of m2 divided by m1, D, the square root of m2 divided by the square root of m1 divided by m2, or E, 1. So what we have is this diagram here showing us the system. We have two masses, m1 and m2, going in opposite directions angularly, with mass 1 having a velocity v1 and mass 2 having a velocity v2. They are orbiting around a central mass, m. Mass 1 has a radius of r1, and mass 2 has a radius of r2. So two satellites of masses m and m1 and m2 orbit a planet of mass m in circular orbits. The satellites travel in opposite directions with speeds v1 and v2, as shown in the figure above. Their orbital radii are r1 and r2, respectively. Assume that m is greater than m2, which is greater than m1. Okay, so in order to solve this, first of all, we have to use the equation for the force of gravity. So the force of gravity is equal to G times m times, let's start with m1, divided by r squared, so that's r1 squared. And since it's spinning in a circular orbit, that means that that force is also the centripetal force, so that's m v1 squared over r1, and then we can just cancel out everything that's the same. So m r1 and r1, so m1 and m1, r1 and r1. So we end up with gm over r1 is equal to v1 squared. If we do the same thing with the second mass, we get g m2 divided by r2 squared is equal to m2 v2 squared divided by r2. So we cancel out the m2's, cancel out one of the r2's, and we end up with gm divided by r2 is equal to m v2 squared, or is equal to v2 squared, like this. So next what we want to do is we want to set this up as a ratio. So we want to know the ratio of v1 divided by v2. So we can use v1 squared over v2 squared is equal to gm over r1 over gm over r2. The gm's cancel out, and we get v1 squared divided by v2 squared is equal to r1 over r2. Like this. Just set it up as a ratio, since we know that v1 is equal to gm divided by r1. We have that up there. Same thing with v2 squared, gm over r2 down here. The numerators cancel out, and we end up with v1 squared over v2 squared is equal to r1 over r2. So if we want the ratio of v1 to v2, we just have to take the square root of it, of both sides. So the square root, so then we get v1 over v2 is equal to the square root of r1 over r2. Which is A.